So on the U-joint, we can inspect the U-joint by simply grabbing the drive shaft, and we're moving it. We want this yoke and this yoke to move together, which it is. You can see it's transferring that movement to the inside of the pinion of the differential. If this was staying stationary and this was moving, then the U-joint we would need to be replaced. You can also push up and down with the drive shaft to check to see if it has movement up and down and movement back and forth. So we'd check this one, and then we'd also check this one, moving it up and down and side to side, and then we twist that. You can see how it goes directly into the transfer case. So this is a good fit. On the front drive shaft, we can do the same. We twist it and make sure that the yokes are moving together, and the yoke where it goes into the transfer case is also moving together, no movement. And on the CV axle, that one actually is broken. You can see that boot, that's torn. So contaminants could get inside of this boot and wear this CV axle out. So we'd want to replace this boot or the CV axle assembly. So this one, we'll check the boot on both sides. That one's torn. This one looks good. Okay. All right. What we've got here is the U-joint with the yoke, and when these wear out, we need to change them. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can do this. Some people will use a hammer, punch, and socket. That's not necessarily the recommended way anymore. Some people would put this over the top of the vise here, so they would move it like this, and we would hammer this to pop the U-joint out. With a lot of our drive shafts now going into aluminum, they don't take the abuse of the hammer. So if the hammer's being hit on anything that's aluminum or weak metal, then we do damage to the drive shaft. So we're going to show you the preferred industry method now when we change these U-joints. And I'm putting this in the vise here just to make it easy to work on. We don't want to crank this down and do damage to the drive shaft, this drive line at all. So we're just going to use this to hold it in place. C-clips are placed on these U-joints, and they're either on the outside, sometimes they're on the inside, and sometimes General Motors used a plastic piece that attached the U-joints in place, and they injected plastic where you have to heat up the yoke, and then it comes out like a little snake to remove all that plastic. So depending upon what your drive shaft has, out clips, inside clips, or injected plastic that holds the U-joint in place, you have to remove these certain clips to get access to our U-joint. So this little clip here, we're just gonna pinch this with some needle nose pliers. And after I pinch this together here, I'm going to pinch and then lift this up. You see how that just popped? Sometimes it's a little hard. So I'm gonna use a screwdriver here to get up underneath that little ridge. And then I can just pull this clip off. Okay, so the clip right there goes in a little ring on this outside, and that little ring is what keeps the U-joint in place. So this one has outside clips. There's 4. We've removed the other ones here, and then now we're just gonna have to press the U-joints out to get the yoke separated, this yoke from this yoke on the drive shaft. They sell some tools. This is a tool that we can use to press them in. You can see there's not a hole here. Some people will use a socket to create a hole because we're pushing the U-joint into this section area, so we want to have something hollow. If you want to damage a socket, you don't care about a socket, make sure it's big enough for the opening where that U-joint comes out. This is also a tool that's used, and it's going to be underneath the yoke ridge here. So this just goes down. We'll be using this, and I'll show you how this works. But this particular one, you can tell the angle isn't the best because our little pieces here on these little levers right here is on the yoke. And so I don't like to use this because you can see it kind of rotates, but we'll show you how this works, and it's really effective with half the U-joint off. I like to use a ball joint press. This is hollow, so I don't have to worry about damaging a socket. I have a shaft here, and what we're going to do is we just simply put it over where that U-joint is, and we're just going to tighten this down into place on that U-joint right there, just like that. And I've got my ratchet, and I'm just going to now tighten this, and as I tighten this, it's going to press the U-joint. You can kind of see it moving. See how it moves to the side there? So we're pressing, and you can see this shaft is pushing that U-joint out. And then when I loosen it here, we're going to see that the little cap right here is exposed. And with that cap exposed, okay, so we're going to grab some channel locks. We're going to move this back and forth, and it pops off. Okay, so we got this one. You can see how that's now exposed through this. A couple of needles there. I would put the other way, yeah. Okay. And then now we're going to push this side out. So if we have some needles like this, we can grab these needles with the magnet because we're going to reuse this U-joint. And tighten this up. Now we're going to push this one out here like this. And you'll see that we do the same thing off the shaft here. And it just pushes that other U-joint out. And now, with this cap pushed out here on this side, I can usually get the cap off like this, and then I can, sometimes I have to work it a little bit, but this gives me exposure to this off. Okay, so right here you can see the caps have needle bearings, and these needle bearings roll on these shafts, and these needle bearings wear out, and so we have to replace the U-joint because these little needle bearings, as they roll on here and they're not properly lubricated, they can bind up, break, and it causes this U-joint shaft to wear down. So what we're going to do now, instead of using this other tool, now we're going to use this tool. You can see these little pieces right here line up perfectly with the shaft there. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to tighten this, and I'm going to try to center it there, and you can kind of see how it's positioned there. And we're going to tighten this. Now, because I want to keep this easier for me to work on, I'm just going to use the vise just to hold it here. Okay. And I'm going to now, which you may want to see on the other side, how this lifts it up. So we're going to tighten this, and you can see right here it's pushing on this shaft, and then this other piece that's lifting. So it's kind of lifting up on this. And you can see that the shaft down here is exposed and it's pushing this. So what had happened is it pushed this cap down, and now we'll just do the other side. You can see how it lifted that cap up there. And then we're just going to do the same thing right here on this side. If we are replacing the U-joint, we don't have to be very gentle with this. The new U-joint, since we're not replacing it, we're using this. You can kind of see how that now lifts this up. And so this piece is lifting up, holding the yoke, and it's pushing this down. You can see how it pushed it down on both sides here. And then we just need to remove these little bearing caps to get this inner U-joint off. Okay, so you can see we bottomed out there, so we can't go any deeper there or there. And so this is when we grab our pliers here or channel locks, and we just kind of move this and pull, trying to assist to get this side off. And then we're going to do the same over here. Sometimes if these are really, really tight, you might have to use a punch or something to get it out. But see, this one doesn't want to give up very easy. Then we slide that off, and then we just slide the U-joint out. So after we've removed the U-joint, we want to make sure that no nicks, burrs, these are clean on the yokes. We want to make sure that there's no nicks, they're not bent. We want to inspect the yokes on this, and we want to inspect the yokes on the drive shaft. We've got our yoke here. We're going to make sure that these are all cleaned out. And take our new U-joint, make sure these spin like they're supposed to. This is not a new one. We're going to actually use a used one. And we're just going to put this here like this. And we're going to put this one through this hole, and then we're going to drop this back here a little bit, and kind of see, and then we'll put this cap here. So as we tighten these into place here, we want to make sure that this slides back and forth freely. So you can do this a couple ways. I find it easier to just let this sit like this, and with the brass hammer we'll just gently tap this down, and you can see how it just goes into place there, and it's flush now right there, and the bearings didn't get unseated. And then what we're going to do is we're going to press the other one in with the press, and so I'm just going to gently put this here. So after I put this in here, I'm going to move this shaft. You can see how this shaft moves back and forth. This one's seated already. I want to put this so it's kind of in the middle there, so then that way the bearings don't bind up on that shaft. And next I'm going to grab my press here, and I'm going to get this so it doesn't move on me. And I'm going to put this here like this, and I'm just going to line it up here and just let that rest there. And I'm going to tighten this, and I'm moving this as I'm tightening it back into place. You can see how I don't want it binding at all. Okay, so the main thing is we don't want this binding up, because if it binds up, those needle bearings won't allow us to go as deep as we need to. So as I'm tightening this, I'm just simply moving this back and forth gently. I'm not trying to create any tension to bind it. Now, they sell arbor presses. We don't have an arbor press to press this in, but you can see we're getting close, and we're just going to get it seated here. You can see this is now applying a little bit of pressure there. Still free though, right? We're going to go a little deeper, so then that way we can get that C-clip. And that C-clip is what holds that U-joint in. So the C-clip here, right here, we're going to put right in that groove. So I'm going to grab this C-clip right here, and I'm going to pinch it and then put it up in there, and you can kind of push it into place and you'll hear it snap. So this is there, little screwdriver, make sure it's in that groove. See how it just snapped in. Okay, so we got this side in there, but we need to now push this side in. So we're gonna have, see how this is flush. Now we need to push this one in. So I'm going to do the same thing here. And I'm going to put this on the shaft here. And now I'm going to tighten this into place. Make sure this is snug. And we're going to push that in where it's on that groove. Make sure it's free. You can see right there. I've got the groove exposed. I'm going to grab my C-clip and my needle nose pliers and do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to take this, pinch it, and just gently push this into that groove so it locks it. You see it just snapped. All right, so if the U-joint is bound up in any way like this, okay? If it's bound up, what I like to do is just kind of gently move it like this, and it frees it up a lot easier. Okay, you don't need to hammer it and go all crazy. Just something to make it free, because you want this to move freely to allow the drive shaft to spin freely. So what we've got next is the drive shaft here. So we're going to do the same thing on our drive shaft. We're going to put this in the vise. It's easier to work with the vise, and I just put it sideways like what we did before. Try to get it somewhat level. Make sure these little pieces are cleaned out, because those caps, when we remove these caps need to go on there, right? So I'm going to pull this off, and I'm going to pull this one off. And again, it's probably easier, like we showed you, if I put this on here, and then I'm going to twist this here. I don't want to move those needle bearings at all. And again, what I like to do is just going to kind of sit it right here on this level piece, and gently hammer that down into place. You can see the U-joint now is into place, and it's moving freely. And I got this somewhat where it needed to be seated. Same thing, right? So after that, now I'm going to put this back in here. And just like we did before, double check our needle bearings, make sure they're good. And we're going to move this shaft back slightly, just like we showed you with the other. And we're just going to line this up, okay? Push it in, make sure it slides freely. And just like before, now we're going to do the same thing on this, where we tighten this back into place here. So I'm going to now snug this up. I'm going to move this out of the way though, because I need to move this back and forth. Make sure it's not binding. It's like it's binding a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that that slides freely. That one seats, this one. There it goes. Okay. And then I'm just gonna snug this in. Sometimes this gets a little off center here. Again, the arbor press, if you have one of those, they're a lot better. They're a lot easier because you have that straight up and down movement. But with this, I'm just trying to go in at an angle because I can move the shaft back and forth. So if it wants to come off a little bit, we'll just bring that in and see how it bottomed out there. So we got to get in that groove to get that snap ring. Wow, that just doesn't want to go in that groove, does it? Okay, now that it's in there, I'm going to go again. It's not binding. Okay, I go in deep enough where I can put the next little C-clip in. Got my C-clip here, just like the other two. So I'm going to grab this and put this right there at the tip. just crimp that together, push it in until it snaps in, just like that. And then we're just going to rotate this over. You see how that's flush. And then we're going to do the same thing here. This is on the top there. Get it lined up. Tighten this down. You see that now we've got it past that groove. Okay, and you can see that groove right there. Okay, so I got my C-clip here again, and I'm going to go right up into that groove. Let me go this side, maybe a little easier. Okay, I just crimped it there. And then I'm going to use my screwdriver to kind of push it back in until it pops. Right, like that. You see how it's all seated in there. All right, so again, we're checking for movement, right? We want it to be solid. We want it to move. This one is now installed. We're gonna, check, make sure that everything is lined up, and it is. Now that's how you remove a U-joint and press a U-joint in.